Hi and welcome to yet another episode of Who Moved the Market. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay. Now, if you've been following the news, I am sure you have already seen the headlines, and it's a big one. Another carrier, another airline is now moving from the skies to the ground. In fact, it's getting into the bankruptcy courts. We're talking about GoFirst. The news really came through yesterday, and now it's official. We've spoken to the company as well. Because of issues with the delivery of Pratt Whitney engines, and allegations that that company is not following the arbitral award, the award from an international court, GoFirst has said that it needs to file for bankruptcy to quote-unquote protect its assets. We have two colleagues in the house to make us to help us make sense of these rapidly changing developments. Sonia here, of course, who's been tracking the aviation space for a long time, to help us understand whether Go's loss can be others' gain. And of course, Ritu, who's our standing expert on banking and all things relating to bankruptcy. Thank you, ladies, first of all, for quickly joining us on the show today. Ritu, I must say, we thought we are done talking IBC, Section 7, Section 10, and here it is, the courts are making the headlines all over again today.
They are, but while you keep hearing of IBC cases, for an aviation company, this is rare. And, it's not very encouraging to see the past experience with Jet Airways. So I think that is the larger concern. Even if it goes through IBC, who's going to buy out the company?
I was just telling someone that I've been tracking the aviation sector for 15 years now. Every 5 years, there's some,
one airline
going bust. And it's such an unfortunate thing, right? For not just for the airline, for the promoters, for the stakeholders, customers, bankers. So that whole ecosystem sort of collapses and nobody wants to see that happen.
No, absolutely. So, okay, let's talk about this sort of latest issue with GoFirst. As I mentioned, it is stemming from the fact that the company has not been getting delivery for Pratt Whitney engines. The numbers, what has GoFirst right now put on record? They're saying that the total outstanding dues are just a little over 11,400 crores. Now, this is the money it owes to its financial creditors, which is banks and financial institutions, also to vendors, and also to the aircraft lessors. The important thing to keep in mind is that as of the 30th of April, GoFirst has not defaulted on the banks, on its financial creditors, but it admits that it has already started defaulting on the other creditors, the operational creditors, on the vendors as well as the aircraft lessors. Now, Sonia, we were, of course, listening into the management interview as well, right? And I think they've made it amply clear that their hands are tied and they can't do anything more in the situation unless they get the engines.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that's the main problem, right? So they spoke about how the promoters are very committed to the business. The promoters have infused 6,500 crores already. There's a collateral that they have given against land as well to the tune of around 4,000 odd crores. And as we know, the Wadia group, the Wadias themselves own about 24% stake in the company in GoFirst. So it's not a problem about the promoters or the business. It's a problem more about the Pratt Whitney engines. Now, in that context, they said that the compensation that they have received is only $49 million as of now. However, they have come out with a need to kind of get more compensation, which hasn't come through just yet. And because of that, the financial situation has resulted in them not continuing operations. So I think they did everything that they could in order to salvage the situation. And the first thing that they told Shireen when she did the interview was, this is not a bankruptcy situation, this is an insolvency situation where we are trying to sort of resolve the, and protect our assets. But, the only thing I wanted to add here is that I think it would be hard for them to start operations. That's the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of people, because not about the funding situation. Because in the past, when such engine issues have happened, like we've seen with the case of other aviation companies as well, it's been very hard for them to get back in the air. So it could take a lot of time, and I guess in the interim, a lot of stakeholders suffer.
No, absolutely, because they're also sort of going on record to admit that the lessors have started now repossessing the aircraft. So once the aircraft are taken away, even if you get the engines tomorrow, you sort out your issues.
There's not much to speak of in terms of assets for an airline.
Absolutely.
Leased aircrafts.
And just one more point here. So brokerage Credit Suisse put out a note where they said that because the aviation industry is booming now, what lessors are going to do is they're going to take the aircrafts from them
and deploy elsewhere.
Because they don't want to lose out on, that
absolutely,
that cash cow.
Yeah, it's an asset that's lying idle or is absolutely grounded right now. Now, the big question is, how do things proceed from here on? And Ritu, help us make sense of this. So we know that they've moved NCLT, and this matter is listed for hearing tomorrow. That's the 4th of May.
Yeah.
Section 10 is what they've invoked. So help us with the technicalities. What happens here?
So essentially, you can move the NCLT to initiate a bankruptcy proceeding as the creditor or even as self. So, if you feel, that you need to clean your balance sheet, you need the protection of the court for a court-driven resolution process, you yourself can initiate that process, and that falls under Section 10. Now, there are very few instances where we've seen at least large companies that have made headlines going through Section 10. So this is definitely one of the first ones, and it will definitely set a precedent for the others to come. But the process itself is very similar to what we see in other IBC companies, where once the application is admitted by the court is going to appoint an insolvency resolution professional. That professional is going to take charge of the finances of the company, run the day-to-day operations. Then he will invite resolution plans. Now, whether those resolution plans are, a full acquisition of the company, some strategic investor coming in, some capital infusion by, monetization of assets, that is to be determined. But as we've seen in most cases, it usually involves the sale of the company. Now, here again, the company reiterating in the interview to Shireen that the promoters are very much committed, although not saying if they will participate in the resolution process.
Well, absolutely. That question was asked, and they did not give a very straightforward answer. They said, we'll see how this kind of progresses. But they did say that the promoters have every intent to be in the business, and they've moved the NCLT only to protect their assets. So, can promoters themselves come in and present a resolution plan? Can they offer more equity? But they're also saying, what's the point of offering equity? Because if you don't have aircrafts up and running in the sky, then that equity is pretty much going to go to zero very soon.
Well, there's nothing in the IBC rules to prevent promoters per se from participating, but you just have to be eligible under Section 29A, which means you should not have been responsible for the financial decline of the company. You should not have been a defaulter. So among the larger criteria, these are the two important ones. Do Wadias qualify? That is a question we'll have to see. But
that'll be decided in the courts.
Yeah, that'll be decided in the courts. We'll see how the case is argued out. And if it comes to that, then perhaps the regulator, if they have to step in, if somebody like the Reserve Bank of India, when the banks are involved, they look at the fit and proper criteria as well. So in the case of GoAir, for instance, it could be court-driven, yes.
But if history is anything to go by, one thing we know, Ritu, is that none of the IBC proceedings are very quick, right? We're talking 6 months to 1 year, of course, maybe even longer.
It started with closing resolution in 180 days. That was never achieved, almost never achieved. And then that got extended to 270, to 330. But we know cases go on for much longer than that, yes. Now, here the big question mark is, you were saying the promoters said that they want to protect their assets and therefore they wanted to file for these bankruptcy proceedings. Will the creditors oppose it? So far the sense that we've got from speaking to multiple bankers is they were not really in the loop about the filing of Section 10, this application with the court. Now, do they think this is too premature? Did the company take all possible efforts to revive the airline before they filed for this protection? Because what do you mean by protection? Right now, the application is still pending at court, but the second it gets admitted into the NCLT, lenders can no longer take action to recover, which means they cannot enforce their security, they cannot take any action against the company. So in that sense, it is ring-fenced. Now, are the lenders going to be uncomfortable with the fact that, this filing happened without perhaps their adequate consent or representation? Could they have recovered money outside the process better? Because like I said, with Jet Airways, they haven't had, the best example to follow.
Yeah, and we already have one airline sort of on the ground. By the way, here, lenders, in case you're wondering, we haven't named the banks.
Yeah.
There's Bank of Baroda, there is a Central Bank of India, there's Deutsche Bank,
IDBI has very little exposure, about 60 crores, and Axis Bank even lesser, about half of that.
So I think there's another issue, right? A total of, I think, GoAir has a 6,500 crores of...
Two banks.
Two banks, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you recover this debt? Because when we saw the case of Jet Airways, it was a larger operations with lower debt. Even then, the lenders could barely recover any value from Jet.
They're talking about a 95% haircut for a resolution that is still not closed.
And the airline is still nowhere close to getting back up in the skies.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to the, to the other aspect of it, Sonia, that, one man's problem is another's opportunity, as they say. We've seen that rub off on stocks today, right? Interglobe has been doing really well. So what's the chatter around this one? I mean, immediately, because these guys are not booking. I think they've closed bookings till the 15th of May. So straight away, you have more traffic moving to
Absolutely.
the existing
And
ones.
you, me and Ritu know, right? I mean, the the skies are full.
Yeah.
This industry is booming right now, and it's become like a two-player market. It's become like a duopoly structure almost, where there's Indigo on one hand that has about 57% market share, and then there's the Tata Group, which has Air India, Air Asia, and Vistara. So in that context, they have a total of 90% market share just between these two players.
But you know, even if this were to go to IBC and if they were to invite bids, who do you think even are the potential suitors? I mean, does somebody like in Indigo have the capacity to absorb Go Air? Because Air India has its hands full with,
with their integration. So, we were speaking with one of the analysts today, Mayur Milak, and he definitely was of the view that Indigo is not going to go for this.
No.
They have, very substantial market share domestically in any case, and they're focusing a lot on their international operations. That was one view from the street that, don't think Interglobe wants to sort of get
Akasa and some of the others are too new to take on a large acquisition like this. It's so early in their starting career.
I mean, we have an entity in the form of Jet, which is yet to take off, and they were supposed to get, new promoters, the Jalan and Calaroc consortium. Well, yet to see the light of the day.
This is also largely a loss-making business, I mean, Go Air has for the last many years been loss-making, and the last time it made profit was in 2018. And in that context, if you want to even take over, it's not the best industry and the best business for someone to take over. And especially at a time when there are two large players already hogging 90% of market share. So I guess, and there's already Akasa that has come up now. So the guys at Akasa, if there was any potential, that has also been killed with now Akasa coming through. So
and what do you take over? Because the lessors are going to claim back their aircraft. I mean, you have landing rights, that's about it. What are the hard assets would you want to buy off?
Your landing rights, your routes, the longer you stay grounded, and we've seen this with Jet as well, you will lose them. And in terms of assets, like we've seen, these are leased planes, these are leased aircraft. The company may, I don't know if they own any aircraft, which was the case with Jet, and they're still trying to liquidate those. And again, the assets have been deteriorating over time and their value has been coming down. That's been a key contention point, even with the resolution of Jet.
Also, if there is an incoming owner, you think of yourself as an incoming owner, right? You need some meaningful assets. And airlines, they don't have like steel plants or something which are meaningful assets that can drive value. So in that context, what's the draw?
The routes and the slots, I mean, you can't hold on to them after the airline's been grounded.
Oh yes, which means that it's going to be trying times, I think, for the next couple of weeks for the entire ecosystem, stakeholders, and also employees of the airline. I'm sure they're watching the space with bated breath quite closely. So, ladies, thank you very much for making sense of the story so far. And we are going to be coming back to you repeatedly because this story isn't over by any means. Let's see how things transpire for GoFirst.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
All right, guys. With that, we are out of time on this edition of Who Moved the Market. Thank you for watching in. Keep sending us your feedback, your comments and queries. See you again tomorrow.